Right, you're now on YouTube.
Put my makeup on. Well, I make it 7:30, so I suppose we ought to start, councillors.
Thank you.
Right. Item 1 on the agenda is apologies. Receive and accept apologies for absence.
Everybody is here.
Right.
No.
Thank you very much. Item 2 is declarations of interest. Receive declarations of disposable pecuniary interests and other interests and the nature of those interests relating to items on the agenda. Can't see any hands up, so I assume nobody's. I won't say nobody's got any interest. But did you?
Oh, just really, it's a question of, because I'm a member of the East Northants, sometimes it pays to just put that I will make my decisions at a later date, should there be any items that are affected. But I don't think there are any, but it's just best to put it in. Doesn't cost you anything to declare an interest. So.
Okay. Thank you very much. And item 3. Minutes. Approve and sign as a correct record of the minutes of the meeting held 15th September 2020. A copy on pages 1 and 2 of the supporting document.
Yeah, minutes all read and correct.
Second it.
Right, thanks. Need all in agreement. It looks like I've got a full set of hands. Alicia, do you want me to sign? I've printed a copy out. Do you want me to sign my copy and then?
Yes, please.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then if you could just drop them through the door at some point, that would be lovely.
Well, I'll probably be on the square tomorrow morning, so I'll be able to drop them there. Will there be anybody in the town hall tomorrow morning? Or?
Yes, I'll be there.
Okay, right. Okay.
And the mayor is now doing the 2-minute silence at 11 o'clock. So.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. So item number 4 is the public forum. Allow any members of the public to address the meeting upon individual items listed on the agenda for a period of not longer than 3 minutes. I know we've got a member of the public here. Does she wish to say anything?
Just try. Hilary, did you want to speak? Hilary, did you want to speak?
No, I'm just going to listen. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. I assume there's nobody else. I can't see anybody on the screen.
No, there's nobody else now.
Okay, so if we move on to item 5, which is the cemetery fee review for 2021 to 22, review of cemetery fees, copy on pages 3 to 6, the supporting documents. I think it's fairly self-explanatory. I don't know if anybody wants to say anything on this, or yes, Councillor O'Rourke.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It says on the spreadsheet of the cemetery fees, suggested revision. To current figures shown in brackets, but I don't see any figures in brackets on mine as such.
There's actually only one suggestion of a change, and that is for the scattering of ashes area.
Oh, it's scattering. So that is the only one, is it? Okay. That's the only one.
Yeah.
And then actually,
that's the one with £55, is it? Yeah. Okay.
yeah, and then there should Sorry, there should also be a fee proposed against the charge for the burial of a stillborn that relates to the last section on the written report. That's for your consideration as well.
Okay, thank
So
you.
where it is actually listed on the spreadsheet as 0, if you read the text on the report for the burial fees for a stillborn.
Yes, I did see that,
Yeah, we're asking you to consider putting.
Yeah, I saw that, thank you, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
I don't know. Anybody wants? Oh, Bert, do you want to say something?
Well, this particular fee is recoverable anyway, isn't it? So why would it affect us if obviously you've only had one, and let's say we have another one, you can recover that fee from the CFF fund. So I don't know where that CFF fund is administered from, but why would it worry us?
Sorry, do you want me to respond to that?
Well,
If you wish to, Malika.
Yeah, I was just going to explain that the fund is a government fund through the Ministry of Justice, and we can only make a claim for fees that we charge. So at the moment, we can't claim for the burial of a stillborn child because we don't have a fee against it. So what we're suggesting is a small fee to recover the administration costs that we have in administering burials. If there's no fee on our charges schedule, we can't make a claim for it. We can only claim for what we've actually got a fee for.
Okay.
that's the bit I couldn't understand.
Okay.
Sorry.
All right.
I think Angela was actually first up with the hand. So Angela.
Thank you. Just two little things with the stillborn section that you've written there. Can I clarify that it's the town council that does all the reclaiming of any fees, and the parent wouldn't have to go through any process under such circumstances?
Yeah, the idea of the scheme is that all those people that manage the burial, so the funeral directors and the burial authorities, which in this instance is obviously us with the cemetery, make those claims, not the parents.
Okay, thank you. So there would still be, in effect, for the parent, there would still be no fee?
As I understand it, yeah, because the government offered to pay those fees through this scheme. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
Tina?
Likewise, I was just concerned that we weren't causing any stress to the parents at such a difficult time. So, yeah, I agree now that it's the town council that makes the claim. We're not asking them to do any extra work or any extra hassle. That's fine. Thank you.
Bert, you wanted to come back?
And I propose then that we accept the fee of £30 to £50 is considered appropriate, that we put that fee in.
Seconder? Oh, sorry, Alicia?
Sorry, the suggestion of £30 to £50 was just, it needs to be in that range. So could I just ask you to either agree it be at 30, 40, 50, whatever you think, if that's okay, rather than leave it as a range?
Was there a point at which I'm trying to remember reading through it without reading through it quickly now. What's the cost to ourselves, to the council, for a burial of a stillborn? Is that 30, 40, 50 pound?
That's one of them.
Right, yeah, that's why we've suggested that range. So if you want to go middle of the road at 40, that would
£40.
Yeah.
So we say 40 pounds. So if we take Bert's proposal with the
£40
at the fee of £40, anybody seconding it?
I'll second it.
Okay, thank you, Tina. All in favour? Okay, that looks is unanimous. Thank you very much. Right, trying to keep track of where we are. Item 6. Sorry, Alicia, was that the only thing that we need to vote on that last one? The rest of the fees you said weren't changed, I think.
Yeah, I assume that you were voting to increase the suggested increase for the scattering of ashes area from 50 to 55, because that was the only other proposal that was shown on the
Well,
on the spreadsheet. But if you
shall
want
we
to
just make sure of that? So if I propose we're going to vote on
I'll second it.
that, is seconded. All in favour? Yeah, thanks very much. At least that's cleared up. Okay. Sport item 6, sports and facility fee review for 21 to 22. Receive and note report regarding the use of facilities current year to date, which must be virtually zil. Page 7. Find page 7 now. Right, there's a report there on the facilities, how they've been used, which is obviously a great deal lower than we've got now, or last year, and hopefully a great deal lower than we're going to have, we'll hopefully have next year. Bert, do you want to say something?
Well, my feelings are that, bearing in mind some of these clubs have had a pretty hard time this year and they will hope to start recovering next year, do we really want to impose additional burdens on them? Is it possible that we can just keep everything as it is for the next year in the hopes that we'll assist people, all these clubs to recover, etc.?
Yeah, I agree.
Well, I think that's what's being said on the under the review. No revisions to the fees are felt necessary. So I think
that's what I am proposing, that we accept the no fees to be increased.
Yeah.
I second it.
And seconded. Would like to everybody in agreement with that? Okay, that's unanimous as well. Great. Oh, right. Item 7. Sorry, we're not going too fast for you, Lisa, to keep.
No, that's fine. Thank you.
Item 7, tree planting, Saffron Road Recreation Ground. Consider the planting of 5 Swedish white beam trees on Saffron Road Recreation Ground. Pages 10 to 11 on the additional. As I have no idea what a Swedish white beam tree is, I'll bow.
To guide you. I can guide you with that. Having had a walk with my very learned friend.
Okay. I think Angela was, I just caught in the corner of my eye, was probably the first one up with a hand. So go ahead,
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair. The 2 X's on Saffron Road, I think, are excellent suggestions. I do have grave reservations for what only can be described as, take your pick, rugby or goal pitches, which the other 3 will inevitably turn into in the middle of an open play area. When the PCSO and I do our walkabouts of late, anything for some unknown reason, only known to themselves, they can climb on, hang from, swing from, probably including my very own children, they will, unfortunately. So I think we should open-heartedly plant any tree, but not necessarily in open grass area.
Okay, I think Bert was next.
It's strange because they're the 3 that I haven't, no, not all 3 have an objection to. The central one of those 3, that used to be where a tree was. Obviously it was felled for some reason because it's a slight mound there, but the end one that is closer to the cricket club end, that is actually on what is going to, well, I hope is still going to be our 5-a-side pitch. So I would like to see that one moved. There is, if you think about Vinehill Drive, closer to where the skate park is, we had to fell one a couple of years ago because it was rotten. So I'd like to see that particular one move down to replace that tree. And likewise, the other one closest to the children's play area, that's very close to the Flymobile. And also, obviously, the zip wire. So I can't quite imagine why we'd want to put it there. I just wonder whether we could relocate that one somewhere else as well. So that we just have one there on that mound where it used to be an existing tree.
Tina.
Right, thank you. My initial request from the town council was that we could replace the one that we felled in February. But when I had a walk with Richard, we decided that we could actually fit 2 in there. The actual Swedish white beam, Tony, is the tree that is on the edge of Saffron Road and Vinehill Drive. So it's a tall tree with quite a large canopy.
Okay.
Unlike the limes that are also on Saffron Road Drive, which have a lot of things growing out of the trunks which need constant attention. We were talking about the use of saffron wreck and how much use it does get in the summer, and how groups of people try to get under what trees there are, what few trees there are now, to get some shade. And if we planted on the Vinehill Drive end, they wouldn't actually get any useful shade until later in the day. The ones that are planted, the 3 that you're all referring to, I know that they look very near to the zip wire, but actually they're not. And Richard was well aware of the 5-a-side football posts going back up in position, and it doesn't affect them either.
It's on the net. It's on the.
It's not quite near. It's not quite in the position of the one that was taken down.
It's not far off.
It's not far off, but it's not quite there because that was too close to the zip wire. And the reason that we would like to plant those there is to provide shade.
Okay. Anybody else want to add anything? Or so, I mean,
Well,
yeah, go ahead, Chris.
yeah, thank you. Well, why don't we just, in that case, with what Councillor Jackson said, and perhaps if we settle for 2, if that was a bit too close, why don't you just have 2 there? And the other thing is, I've noticed only this summer, because of lockdown, a lot of people on the recreation field, you know, sitting out. On previous summers, I mean, I haven't seen a fantastic amount of people sitting out in the sun anyway, but it's mostly, I found it more in because of the lockdown and people going out and sitting in their deck chairs and such and having their picnics. Yeah. So I thought 2 trees basically. Would 2 trees be sufficient?
Bert, you want to?
Yeah, well, obviously, one of the problems with the 5-a-side was that you get an awful lot of wear. And so we were proposing to have a system whereby they could be moved from one end to the other to allow the pitch to recover. And of course, this is what we would be extending. I know possibly that is very close at this moment in time to the goalmouth, but I was hoping to move that goalmouth a little bit closer to that mound, just so that we could have virtually 2 pitches. Not all at the same time, obviously, but it's a question of one pitch. Then when it wears the grass to a certain extent, we move it to fresh grass and go backwards and forwards. And if we put a tree in the way, we're not going to be able to do that.
Alicia.
Yeah, I was just going to clarify about the 2 pitches. The second pitch was to be nearer to the cricket pitch, and so, well, that was my understanding. We did have the ability to move the 5-a-side pitches,
but it would still need to move back.
It's where the existing one was, and then the second pitch we agreed would be moved nearer towards the cricket pitch, so it would be much closer to the pathway, so away from the play area. So that was my understanding.
Don't forget, you don't want to go too close to the cricket pitch, otherwise you will end up with balls going in and they will be clambering over the fence rather than going up to the gate to retrieve their ball. You want to keep, this is why I wanted that extra space. But the sensible thing is, before we make a decision to plant one, is to set things out and see how it goes.
Yeah, the plan is slightly indicative because obviously it doesn't show the zip wire and it doesn't show the actual location for the
I
5.
think it ought to.
Planting would be done obviously to take account of both those items. Yeah,
I would take up the idea of just have the 2 myself, which was a good suggestion.
Right, Tina, you wanted to add something?
Yeah, Richard did know about the changing of the five-a-side goal, and we did think that it would fit in there because actually, you know, there is the room. We actually made sure that it wasn't near the zip wire, it wasn't near the old stump because that was on quite a mound, and also the five-a-side football would be more at the flatter end of that bit and not quite on the slopey bit. So, I mean, if you wanted to put 2 there and 1 on Vinehill Drive, okay, but Vinehill Drive won't provide as much shade.
Right. I'm wondering whether we have the proposal to supply and plant 5. We agree it tonight, subject to a site visit at some stage before we actually go ahead with the planting. So then we could at least look at, as you say, it's difficult to see on the map when you put a fairly large cross on the site. Compare it with where we actually want football 5-a-side, etc. to go. But I'm just wondering whether that would be the best way forward tonight, to propose that we obtain and plant 5 trees. And I'm not sure, when can this be done at any time, do you know?
I would recommend it's done in the planting season, which is now through to beginning of March time.
Right. So we do need to look at it fairly early. I'm wondering whether instead of having this brought back, or even ending up going to full council to be fully discussed, that we go with what's been suggested, with the proviso that we have a site visit to actually look at the precise siting of each of those trees. If it comes down to the fact that we can't put 5 in, we reduce it to 4, at least we are just reducing it. I think Angela probably had her hand up slightly ahead of Bert there. I'm not sure, but go on, Angela.
Sorry, Chair. I think it was actually Councillor Whiting had her hand up long before myself.
All right, carry on.
If that was a proposal, Chair, I would like to second that. That's what my hand was up for.
Okay. Pam?
No, I was just going to support what you said, Tony, because I think if you could go down and have a look, you'll see how big the tree is that Tina referred to on the corner. We shall see how big it grows, and we shall see exactly the spots that it can be planted.
I think that would be really helpful for me. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, I'm quite happy to second it or third it as it is now. But
Yeah.
Bert, you still had your hand up there.
Well, all I was going to say was, obviously we can place it, as far as I'm concerned, place the order for 5. The actual positioning, while you're sorting, it's got to go to town council meeting anyway, presumably. And so there is a few minutes in which we can just have a quick look and make a final decision on the positions of them. So it's not a problem, is it? Go ahead with the 5, but it's a large enough park. If one of them is not quite suitable, it can soon be put somewhere else, couldn't it?
Right. Well, I think I made a proposal that was seconded and probably thirded. Alicia, does this presumably has to go to full council, or is it we don't, or do we just pass it?
It would go with the recommendation to full council. So
Okay.
if you're minded to have the site visit, we could do that between now and the full council meeting. So at that meeting, be clear on where the 5 or 4 locations will be.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Good
So
idea.
the proposal is that we go ahead as stated there, at that cost, and it's been seconded. So all in favour? Looks like that's unanimous, and we'll arrange a site visit for the next council meeting's Oh, we've got a couple of weeks, haven't we? So,
Yeah.
2 weeks.
I'll email some dates round, so
Yeah,
hopefully
okay.
all members
Okay.
can make it.
You better take a megaphone, and we're still going to be socially distanced.
Yeah.
Okay, then. I've lost track now. Where are we? Right. Item 8 is the Greenway, Kingsmeadow grounds maintenance to boundary land. Consider whether any grounds maintenance work should be undertaken on land that bounds the Greenway through Kingsmeadow Estate. Copy on pages 12 to 17. And this follows the site visit that I think all of us made.
Yeah.
7 of us, 7.
Well, we were split into 2 groups. But, yeah. Right. So we all know. I think we know what the reason for this.
Yeah.
Now, what I don't know is how do we split this background particular case? We're going to decide what our way forward's going to be.
Yeah, so the report has a number of possible options or combination of options that are suggested. Obviously more can be tabled, but they're there as a guide. So one of the things is that you just do nothing and you leave it as it is, and we just carry on dealing with it as we do. Or you perhaps want to go forward and investigate how much grounds maintenance might cost on certain areas or the whole route, and we can get some quotes for that. And then also, while we had the site visit, there was discussion about that very top area near the bridge and possibly doing something with that to make it more of a wildlife project area. And so I don't know how you feel about any of those. It may be appropriate to perhaps just have a smaller working party group to take forward some ideas.
Okay, thank you, Lisa. Bert.
This is one of the problems we've got. We obviously, as a council, we have a decision that we recommend that we take on all the green areas rather than leaving it to management companies. But likewise, we're not necessarily making enough plans to maintain these green areas. So I feel that we've got to start forming some sort of system whereby we do regular, well, not that regular, but we do maintenance so that it doesn't get out of hand. Because at this moment in time, we've just left everything to grow, and then they get so high, you get obviously residents having the problems that everything's overhanging their hedges. They trim them all off and then just throw them over the hedge. We've got to do something about trying to restrict it just to a certain extent so that it's fairly tidy.
Thank you. Tina.
I would think that we could give one good grounds maintenance clearance where they cut it right back down, and then get payback to keep on top of it. You know, then would that be possible? Alyssa, is there any reason why payback can't keep it down? If it's being cleared to ground level, and then they have to trim anything that gets above 2.5 foot.
Yeah, the only thing with payback is we're in no sort of long-term agreement with them. So we at the moment, they come now once a week. I can't guarantee that in 2 or 3 years' time they will still be coming, but then that is something that you could look at. But for now, we have them 1 day a week. Yeah.
So that is a possibility for now. And if it sort of runs out of time, then we could look at it again.
Angela.
I found the site visit really, really useful, actually. And when we walked down it, it was a lovely day. So 2 things from my mind is that I would not want to see a clinical massacre for want of a better word. There's so much wildlife down there. There's so much, and it's so, that was the whole point of the Greenway, the clues in the title. I wouldn't want to see a massive massacre, but I completely think that we need perhaps once every 3 years to give it a really good haircut so it becomes a more manageable place to walk down. At the moment, as Councillor O'Rourke was showing me, I'm fine, I'm short, I'm no more than field mouse high. Councillor O'Rourke, unfortunately, is not. So when I was walking next to him, you can see how things were already at that height, and that's an issue. But we're talking about the section at the bottom as well being a wildlife. If we cut it all back, we're not encouraging wildlife, we're not encouraging that natural growth. So as much as I think we need to be very mindful of the maintenance side of it, I wouldn't want to see it clinicalised either. And I think perhaps something we could look into is, number one, how much is it going to cost? And ask questions from people in the know on what you can cut back so you keep wildlife happy and introduce, wildflowers, etc., whilst, being able to use the Greenway. So if it once every 3 years, and as Councillor Reevy said, then ask payback to come as and when needed to either litter pick or do anything that waifs of strays that have turned up.
I was going to go to Bert. Can I just switch to Sandra for a minute? Yes, Sandra.
Yeah, I just wanted to flag up, I did email out yesterday, there is some issues with ongoing maintenance of the Greenway and that have come up, they're looking at in advance of everything being transferred to Unitary, because we understood NCC cut a metre side twice a year. Well, they say 3 times a year. It's never more than twice a year. So there is some issues that are only report that's coming up to council. So there's going to, I think, ultimately, there's going to be some battles going on with who's responsible for what. And I'm even talking about the Greenway element by the railway line. We might ultimately have to be doing some cutting there, because what we're being told, we can claim it under the verge contribution, which we get at the moment from county council, but you only get contribution for 3 cuts a year, and we do the normal highway verges. I mean, my concern with that is ultimately how long will that payment go on for in each year with losing that. So that's why I did circulate that report, because it has some relevance. Can I also ask where the wildflower area you're talking about near the bridge? Because where you get near the footbridge, some of that land's owned by the Highways Agency, not by the town council.
There's a very large section, staggeringly large actually, and it depends precisely where the boundary is on the slope up to the bridge, the footpath where it slopes up. But even with the existing fences that we could see, or barbed wire we've seen, it is a very large area. It's not just path, and even at the other end of the path, as you go back up to School Lane, isn't it? Yeah. And I'm just looking here at the map that was included in that report, and it shows an equally large area which is badly overgrown all over the top of the stream. And now I can see precisely where the stream runs to and down through the centre of the housing estate there. But both areas are quite large, and the top bit is almost impenetrable at the moment. But I think from what you're saying, Sandra, is we shouldn't make any decisions which might result in us taking on the costs when we could possibly be getting the costs from NCC or Northamptonshire when they take over.
I think in terms of what your visit was about the trees and the hedge lines, I think that is still going to be our responsibility, and that has always all the way along. I think what NCC do as a right of way is cut ground level more supposedly a metre each side, but I'm not sure that happens in all the places. And sometimes they did cut down the overhanging. I mean, the Greenway through Hyden is quite complicated because there's quite a bit that's NCC, there's a bit that's ours, and it's where those boundaries change. And then, as I say, there's Highways Agency. And also you have to remember, as you talked about the stream, some of that is actually the management company, not ours, because I know I've had a discussion when we were, the stream was blocked at one point, and a lot of that was the management company. So when you come from School Lane on the left hand side, a lot of that is actually management company.
So is that something we probably we'll have to do it at some other point, but maybe we should be talking to the management company about getting that cleared, because at the moment I didn't even realise, Angela and I was stood there, and we didn't even realise there was a stream in the bottom of it. It was that overgrown. It
is, because when we had the issue, I'm going to say me and Richard had a bit of a delve in there about 2 years ago. We were like in there looking, so there's definitely a stream there, but there is there is some issues.
I mean, we found the stream and it was running, but very slowly. But anyway,
so there is a lot of issues generally in that area, I think.
Yeah, okay. Bert, you had your hand up.
Yeah. I wasn't, Councillor Gardner, needn't worry, I wasn't talking about doing a haircut. All I'm saying is you do a controlled trim, because if you allow things just to grow out of hand, then it becomes almost unmanageable. Yeah. And what I'm looking at is trying to avoid the problem of overhanging neighbours, fences, etc. They should be sort of just trimmed back so that it's not giving them that problem. But then we could manage all the debris from it. We could manage it properly, because we need to have a shredder of some kind, because you would end up with, if you give it a massive haircut, you'll end up with so much rubbish, it'll cost a fortune to clear. So you've got to do it sensibly. You only trim it lightly.
Okay.
Can I suggest that we get Turney's then to quote, sort of talk to them about advice, what we could do. Perhaps do it in stages, start off lightly, and then another year. If we kept on, did it for 3 years on the trot, we'd probably get it down a bit rather than doing it all in one big go and then not have to do it every year. I don't know.
Right, Tina, I think you were.
A lot of the overgrowth is actually brambles and nettles, isn't it? And the stuff that you can make wine out of, I can't think what it is. Elderberry. And so they will just keep growing year upon year unless they're actually managed. And at certain times of the year, it's virtually impossible down there. And you certainly this summer you could not socially distance when you were walking past somebody, because you couldn't go into the nettles or you couldn't go into the brambles. So we really do need to somehow make it a nice feature for the town and not this obstacle course that you run down.
Angela,
can I suggest that we do actually start getting some quotes from Turney's, etc., and even go to the stage. We know that we've probably got upcoming issues, as the clerk has described, you know, with North Unitary coming on, NCC, our responsibility, who owns what. So this looks like it's an issue that's not going to go away for a little while yet. And I'm reluctant to make any decisions on this item because we don't know what's going to happen going forward. As much as I really don't like working parties per se, it kind of like begs kind of the need for a working party to concentrate on this and perhaps give forward direction to full council, and you know, so the clerk can see what's going on, how this is going to work, collect quotes, how it can be done, the nature impact, the environmental impact of things, how much things will cost, how much can we do. There's so many questions in my mind that need asking alongside what is going on a political level.
Right, that almost sounded like a proposal, but it was very long.
Condense it, Tony. Condense it. Yes.
I mean, one of the suggestions was a working party. I mean, this is a fairly small committee anyway, but I'm assuming, Alicia, you would prefer we have a working party to be yourself and or Sandra and possibly two, maximum of three others.
I think 3 would be,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we could do that. We can make that a proposal. The other one is what do we do with the biannual, triannual, or it doesn't appear to be happening at all, cut? Whether or not we should do anything, suggest anything from this committee, or whether we should leave that with the working party to bring back or bring direct to the full council sometime. I don't know what you think of that, Sandra.
Do you mean the issues we've got with NCC?
Well, yeah, it's the cuts and we've got now, because if we were up to 3 cuts a year, which you're saying is we pay for, or we are told,
I think that, yeah, that report's got to come to council because we're being asked for direction, yeah, because there's like a meeting with Highways ENC at the moment. They're trying to sort it out. So that is actually a separate issue to all the overgrowth.
Right, okay.
Because they're saying at the moment they cut 2 or 3 times a year. And I mean, as Councillor Reevy said, you know, you get to certain times of the year and we're always badgering NCC to cut it because they should cut it. Richard says they should cut it as the public right of way. Yeah. So there is some battle there.
And I got the impression that if they cut it 3 times a year at the right time, that would actually be enough. I mean, it might be getting a bit overgrown by the time they come back for cut 2 or cut 3. Right.
But
just trying to get my head around this. Sorry, Chris. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just say the thing is when they do cut it, they don't always cut all what they should cut, and this is the problem we've had from. Well, I've had from people from Kings Meadow Lane and such like who have said they can't walk down there. There's, you know, it's overgrown. It's, you know, even when the county council have been, they only do the very bare minimum work. And we've got this greenways, and it's such a lovely thing. We, you know, and we don't want to be discouraging people from using it. Otherwise, they'll start getting in their cars, and that defeats the whole object of it. So it does need, you know, sorting.
I think there's two issues. There's the issues I've got with what maintenance we get now and who's going to be responsible going forward, but also there's the maintenance of probably the hedge line and the issues we've got with all the overgrowth, which is a separate. There's 2 issues sort of going on really, side by side. Unfortunately, makes it more complicated. So the issue we've got with NCC will come to council, but obviously the working party can look at the trying to get on top of all the where we've got the ivy, the real sort of hedge line issues. I mean, Richard has got some photos of how it looked when the estate was still first built.
I'll try and wrap this up in a second.
Yeah, one of the other problems is obviously, such as where that gentleman had to do his fence, a lot of the rubbish from there has ended up on the opposite side, which really is almost on the management team's side, because there are concrete posts and lots of other debris that you couldn't just go in there with a scythe, because obviously there's a lot of metal work. That's the sort of thing that we need to get the payback team on clearing out.
Right. I'm just wondering, do we need a proposal to take the bits that you were talking about, Sandra, to full council, or do we include that? We need something that to the full council for discussion there about the way forward with the existing contract where we are.
Yeah, I think that's the. Sorry, we've got some feedback from somewhere. That element can go to council anyway.
Right. So we don't need a proposal or anything on that.
No. I think the other one is about the working party to look at the sort of the backlog of maintenance, I suppose.
Right. Okay. So if I propose that we set up a working party, which would consist of the assistant clerk and or the town clerk and up to 3 councillors from this committee. I mean, we may find, so I think from this committee, and that's a proposal for the working group to look at the future of the Greenway, the extra bits and pieces at the bottom. I'm not quite sure how we word it, but you all know what I'm getting at. So if we've got a seconder on that, we can vote on it.
I'll second that.
Thank you. So if you're all in agreement with that. Right, I've got hands from everybody. Thank you. The next one would be any volunteers to be on a working party.
I don't mind.
So I've got Chris and Bert at the moment. Anybody else? Or Angela's backing away because she got so much.
There is only so much he can do.
Yeah, quite. I mean, if nobody else will do it. Oh, Nigel, do you want to? You'd like to be on the working? You're muted at the moment, so but I'm assuming you put your hand up. You want to be on it? Okay. So there's the 3 then, Alicia.
Okay, thank you.
All right, and then at full council in a fortnight's time, hopefully we'll have the other bit about the problems with the existing ground maintenance contract. Right, thank you very much. And oh dear, item 9, additional fencing and gate at the dogs off lead area. Consider a request from the users of the dog off lead area for the installation of a second access gate to form a fenced off double gate entry system. Page 18 of the extras. And right, where are we? Find it. Right. Does anybody want to? Oh, Bert, you're getting a bit like I can't
Sorry.
remember what the councillor's name was. I used to just look down the table and councillor, whoever it was. Oh, Dunn, that's right.
Now you know what now you know what I was doing, writing things up.
Yeah, go ahead anyway, Bert.
To be quite honest, I couldn't, when I first looked at it, I thought, why on earth would they, if they're dog walkers, they should be training their dogs so that they shouldn't escape. But then I went down farther and they said that they are prepared to pay for the whole thing themselves. My feeling is if they do it in a manner that is suitable to the town clerk, then I would have no objection. Obviously, other councillors might have different ideas, but as long as it doesn't cost the town council anything, I wouldn't have any objection to it. But it does seem a little unusual that you have to have a second gate because of security for dogs that really should be house trained.
Tina, I think you had your hand up first.
Yeah, I think that if they raise their money, I mean, Sandra, are we going to have a costing of how much this is going to cost, and then get them to raise that money? Who will actually construct it? Is it one of our normal? Sorry, Alicia, is it one of our normal people?
Yeah, I'm not going to construct it myself, but I have met with the group, so I understand their requirements, and I've done some measuring so that I can then get some quotes in for them. So at the moment, they don't know what the cost would be, but they're looking to have a second gate that matches the first gated system, which is a field gate and then a pedestrian gate alongside. But you would need some fencing to go from the existing fence line out into the field to allow that second gate that will allow sufficient room for it to open. At the moment, as I say, the group don't know how much it will cost, but they have offered to raise the money. So if you're in agreement with the principle, we would then get it costed and put that back to the group.
Yeah, well, I propose that we do that, but sorry, I can see Councillor Gardner wants to say something.
Councillor O'Rourke was actually first with his hand.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I mean, saying it's not going to cost us anything, it does say that committee are asked to note that the cost of any maintenance and repair of the new entry system will be the responsible of the council following the installation. So we would possibly have some further costs down the line on this.
Right, Angela.
Yes, thank you, Chair. That's what I was going to add, is that the maintenance and ongoing costs. And I just wanted to, have we had any reports of the gates or any vandalism down there? We haven't, have we, Alicia?
No, there haven't been any. I don't think so, Sandra. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm not aware of any.
No. So it's a case of once they've, raised the money and it's of a good quality, it goes in. It's just the maintenance of it or a repair that, if needed, that's what the town council would be responsible for, the ongoing maintenance, as we would be everything else.
Yeah.
Right. I think in answer to Bert, I think individuals and their own dogs, if they're close enough, probably could control them. But if you're one end of the field and your dog's running around with another one and somebody opens the gate, I assume that's what they're worried about, because the dog could be out on the road. But anyway, that's so. I mean, there was going to be a proposal, I think, from Tina. Was it? It was going to propose that we, in principle, we look at this. I think.
Yeah, I was going to propose that we get some quotes in and let them see how much it's going to cost, and let them decide whether they're going to fund it when they know how much it's going to cost.
Okay, that's been proposed. Any seconded? Okay, thank you, Angela. All in favour? Oh, right, we've all got our hands up, so that's carried. Thank you. Sorry, giving you more work, Alicia.
No, yeah.
All right. Item 10. Washing and moss treatment of the tennis courts. Consider entering a 3-year contract for the annual provision of high pressure washing and moss treatment of the tennis courts at the cost of £730 per annum. Page 19 on the sporting documents. Why is this ringing bells for me? We did a one-off, didn't we?
Yeah, we did.
Shall I just clarify, because this item has been to the committee quite a few times. At the last meeting, you resolved to recommend that we go into a 3-year contract, but it was for both the tennis courts and the mugger, and it was subject to the clerk's satisfaction that the pressure washing would not cause damage to the mugger surface, and that the works would not affect any warranties to the mugger surface, because the company that are proposing the contracts are not the company that installed the surfacing on the mugger. And so when we looked into this, the company who undertook the resurfacing works to the mugger have advised that they wouldn't honour the guarantees that they provide if we brought a third party in. So therefore, the proposal has come back to council that we look at a 3-year contract, but just for the tennis courts and not the mugger, and we deal with the mugger separately.
Right.
That makes sense.
Right. Bert, you're definitely going to. I'll start calling you done shortly.
I'm sorry, you shouldn't have given me that extra time to write up all these notes. This is what I was doing, and then I looked at the time. The question is really to Alicia. What's happened to the white lines for the mugger? When are we getting those put back again?
I think Sandra can answer that.
Yeah. I mean, they always did indicate that if we had it done in September, there was always a risk it couldn't be done because of the weather, because they were actually having the surface painted like the tennis courts, and that is weather dependent. They will put down, well, I was hoping some temporary tennis lines for over the winter, and then they'll come back and do it all in the spring. But with lockdown, that hasn't happened as yet.
So it is on the books.
It is on the books. They have, I mean, it had to be left a month anyway before they could paint it to let the oils come out the tarmac. And then obviously we get into the damper weather, and the weather's got to be right for the spray painting that they do before they line it. But to be honest, I haven't chased them up at the moment because they can't use the tennis courts anyway.
No. It's just that as time goes on, sometimes things get forgotten.
Oh no, I can assure you that is on my diarised list, that one.
Right. I think Pam was possibly slightly ahead of Tina there. Go ahead, Pam.
Okay. I'd like to propose that we take the clerk's advice on this, go for a 3-year contract for the tennis court, and look at the Muga as and when it's needed.
Second it. I was going to propose that, so I'll second Pam.
All right. Okay.
Okay, so that's been proposed and seconded. Can we have a vote? Who's in favour? Okay, that looks like it's unanimous. Okay, and let Alicia catch up. Right, item 11 is access to the open space to the rear of Bede Close. To agree a response to correspondence received from a resident with regard to access to the open space to the rear of Bede Close. Copies on page 20 to 27.
So if you recall, you considered the item back in July where you had correspondence from the resident of number 10 Bede Close with regard to the removal of a section of hedge and seeking to put a fence instead. And from the report, you'll see what was resolved, that the resident of number 25 Bede Close be asked to move their wheelie bins from the open space to allow pedestrian passage between the houses and to allow the contractors access to the hedge for maintenance purposes. So the correspondence that's been received is from the resident of number 25 who we wrote to ask them to move the bin.
Yeah.
Right. Anybody like to say anything?
I hardly dare put my hand up now.
Go ahead, Bert. Nobody else is saying anything.
It was pointed out that actually the fence does belong, the hedge does belong to us up to the bin. So therefore, if the wheelie bin was removed, obviously one of the objections of the residents was that if he removed that bin, then people have to squeeze past the hedge, which means they're very close to his car, and occasionally he gets it scratched. So logically, it would be sensible to remove the bin, but also remove a portion of the hedge, if it does belong to us, so that the people can actually exit without having to go too close to his drive.
Right. Anybody else want to say anything? Tina?
I agree that if the hedge is causing a problem, we should remove the hedge, and then the resident can put his picket fence in. But I do not think we should close the public right of way. If it is an access, it has to remain open. But yes, remove the hedge so that nobody is trespassing onto anybody else's property.
Right.
Angela.
I completely agree. Remove the hedge so it's safe for people to walk up and down. There's no need for a wheelie bin to block anybody's access. A picket fence would make sure the boundaries are still intact. Everybody can walk with no damage to any vehicles. I think it's probably the safe and logical way to go. And if that was a proposal, Councillor Reevy, I'm very happy to second that.
Right.
Yes,
without any more, if anybody else wants to discuss.
I don't know whether either Sandra or Alicia want to add anything.
Oh.
I'll let Alicia, she's probably going to say the same as me.
No, well, I was just going to say that obviously the cost of the hedge removal would be met by the council because it's our hedge, so there would be a cost associated with that. Sorry, and Sandra, you were going to say?
Well, the resident actually in his letter has offered to fund it all. He says all of which will be at no cost to the council, page 22.
Oh, that's true. So in theory, yes, they've offered to fund the removal of the hedge as well.
But
Personally, I have a slight. I think we may be able to go back and say, would you like to make contribution to it? I do wonder, because it almost sounds like that anybody who makes a recommendation, writes to us about something like that and offers to pay for it, they're almost buying our services. I don't know what other members of the committee think of that. I think maybe if we agree to having it removed, we may go back to them and say, well, you have offered something, we'll come to an agreement with you on a percentage. I think that's probably somebody saying I'll pay for the whole lot.
Do you think you ought to have any, because I have no idea really how long it is or how much it will cost to remove that hedge, and I just wonder in terms of budgeting whether we ought to have an idea of the cost.
Quote.
Or give, yeah.
It's not a particularly long stretch. I suppose it's the length of the housing, so 10, 12 meters maybe at the most.
Can I suggest we have it? Would you put a maximum budget on it for us to work with it? I'm just concerned because obviously we're looking at budgets at the moment, and
so would you? I'll come back to you in a minute, Bert. Sorry.
Yeah.
Would you prefer us to, let's say, agree in principle to the removal of the hedges, but we'll take it, so it'll be a resolve to recommend to the main council, and then we discuss it at council level, where of course it can be added to a budget if necessary.
Yeah, I was going to say, then we hope, well, we can try and get a budget price for it by then from Tony's, hopefully.
Yeah.
Because I'd hate for it to be sort of, I don't know. I mean, if it was much more than 1,000, I'd start to think whether we could run to do that in this financial year.
Yeah. Okay. Bert.
The only concern I've got is that if we're not careful, we need to stipulate that it has got to keep access. The whole idea, we've spent a lot of money on the Greenway with the object of children, etc., can get access onto that Greenway from all the various houses and then possibly get off to school. If we're not careful, if we allow people to pay for it themselves, they'll end up putting fences so it blocks the access off instead. That's the only concern I've got, that we maintain access for those areas.
I mean, well, the counter to that, of course, is that their property boundaries quite clearly indicate where their property ends, and we know where the Greenway or that path starts, therefore what is ours. So if somebody starts building a fence across that, as long as we don't leave it going for another, whatever it is, 15
10 years.
I can't remember what it is, 10 years. They have to remove it. So they wouldn't be permanently blocked off in that instance. We did have a proposal. I don't know whether we should modify, I can't remember what the wording was now. Whether we should modify it and just say resolve to recommend to the council that we agree in principle with this, but it is to be costed. Would that work?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So if I don't know if I'm making a proposal now, that's just modifying yours, Peter, but I'll make that proposal if somebody wants to second it, and then we'll move on. Are you happy with that proposal?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it's basically what I said, but we want it costing first.
Okay. And all in favour? Right. Thank you. That looks like it was unanimous. I'm losing my teeth now. Thank you very much. Right. Item 12. Shared conservation proposed wildlife meadow, Sovereign Fields, Kings Meadow Estate. Consider the request from, I don't even know how you pronounce that, Hegati Property Management Limited to support pursuit of the idea of a wildflower meadow at Sovereign Fields. Copy 28, pages 28 to 30. Not even sure. Is there a map attached?
Yes.
There's so many
Yeah.
maps I was
Yes.
looking at.
You've got
Oh,
a
right,
map.
I'm with you.
You've got a
Yeah.
map. Page 30.
Page
Yeah.
28 to 30.
Yeah, okay.
The map is 30.
Right, yeah. Just trying to get my head around where that is, actually.
It's
Right
just,
away, if you go.
isn't it referred to as the ride? Is it referred to as the ride as well?
Yeah, I'm with you. Yeah, it was just I was looking at the obviously the path layout on the road here. Yeah, I've got it.
No,
Right.
it's you got phase 5, and that's what was, I think, phase 4, which is never going to come to us. So you got Peyton Way, and you got Riverside Park, and then you've got the bit that we're going to be taking on, and that's the bit that joins with us.
So,
Okay.
as I understand it, the property management company own it, and at the moment, my picture of it that I know is that it's basically open ground, just grassed at the moment. Okay,
Yeah.
but
If you remember, it's where the small children's playground is. The same management team, it is actually the residents who are involved in this, because I was approached, they wanted to remove all the objects in the play area because it was costing them money, getting very expensive. That is the area where we're talking about. I can understand these areas with the meadow grass, etc. I would have thought the best place for one of those is the balancing pond lower down, because this is quite a large area. And it's fine to say about the wildflower areas in the church, that's fine because they're within walled areas. But we are talking about a very large area and basically just leaving it unmanaged, mainly because it'll save them the cost of mowing the grass. They take on these houses with management fees, etc., but they don't realise that it's an obligation lifelong. And yet they then start to try and relieve themselves of the obligation. So I'm a little bit concerned about this. If we allow that, you'll just be walking down. It'll almost be like not a ploughed field, but a very weedy garden. I don't know what the rest of the councillors say.
I must admit that as I was looking at that map, that was what was going through my mind. Does anybody else want to make any comments? And Angela.
I'll save you, Tony, don't worry. I think this one is the idea. So we've got the section at St Mary's Church, which is a small controlled section, and it does what it says on the tin. It's a controlled section. You can see the wildflowers and everything else. I do kind of have the same concerns that it's a lovely idea in principle, but laying it all to wildflowers are those wildflowers going to be maintained, or is it just going to be left to grow year on year on year on year? Alicia, sorry, did you?
Alicia, yeah, go on.
Just going to clarify a point in the letter where they basically asking for the opportunity to discuss with the town council the possible use of this or part of the land. So it's not necessarily about saying yes or no, it's about engaging with them to find out more about it. That's the gist that I got from sort of reading the letter.
Yeah, that's what
Well, I
it
think
says.
perhaps then do we need to put these questions to them?
Bert again.
I'm sorry about this. If you read the whole letter, because there's an awful lot of writing in it, they say it saves the cost of cutting the grass. And this is all they're looking for, is to reduce their ongoing costs, which is, I'm sorry, that would become, you imagine people walking their dogs, the dogs will do their usual business. Will they go and retrieve it amongst all the weeds and the, I'm a little bit concerned about it.
And I say, I mean, you have to maintain these wildflower meadows, and I know Councillor Gell knows a lot about them because we've looked at them before on the verges, and there is a maintenance to them, and they take some years, I think, to establish themselves properly, and they only look really nice at certain times of the year, from what I understand. And yes, engage with them, but you have to bear in mind where the line goes across is the land below that is going to be the town council land, hopefully very soon, and we will be mowing it, so it will look a bit strange there, but obviously this is just an early sort of contact.
Tina.
I was just going to say that we could just have a conversation with them.
Yeah. Pam.
Well, I was just to say more or less the same thing, but small working party that we just put together to do the other thing, could they not work with these and see? I mean, personally, I've got a bit of a grievance about the amount of size here. I mean, if it's just a small bit, then fine, but I think that's too big to leave as a wild meadow. But perhaps the working party could have a chat with them and, you know, just come up with something.
I think possibly I agree with you, because obviously one of the things we were looking at when we were talking about the Greenway, the bottom section was turning that, possibly having conversations about turning that into, I wouldn't say a wild meadow because it's got trees all around over it and what have you, but something similar. So maybe that sounds like a very good suggestion, and we pass it to the working party to include, and then at least then if we get the management company in, if we're ever able to talk face to face, they won't be put off by having to talk to 8 people. Do we need to make a proposal on that, or do we just say what? Well, shall I propose that we
arrange a meeting,
working party, and we open discussions with the management company? Will that do for you?
Yeah, I'll second that. Yeah.
All right. All in favour? Look like it. Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much.
Can I please point out that that management company is the same one that owns that land adjacent to the Greenway as well, so that might be quite a loose one.
Two birds with one stone.
Yeah.
And there might
be some bargaining going on. Yes. Right. Item 13, I think it is. The clerk's report. Riverside Park, Forest Schools. I think is about it on that. I don't know if you want to update. We just received this, or you all read it?
Yeah, it's a really nice letter to have something so positive back to us.
Really lovely letter. Yeah, really lovely letter.
Yeah. Okay. So I think we just received that, don't we? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Item 14 is the Parish Path Warden report. Well, that was a mouthful, wasn't it? Obviously, none of us have a copy of the various path numbers here. I can picture some of them because we've talked about them before, but I think we just have to thank Marion for the work she's done once again. Very comprehensive. And I can't see anything in there that we really need to have to deal with on this occasion. So I think we just receive the report and move on. Okay.
Yes.
And item 15 is items to report, an opportunity for members of the committee to report items and request future agenda items. No decisions can be made under this item.
Chris,
go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, I've just got one item to report, and that's alongside the cricket pitch, along the pathway, you've got the green fence all the way along there, and then you've got all the hedgerow that goes all along it. And it always seems to me always so much overgrown. So when you walk through there and you want to look at the cricket or anything like that, you can't sort of see it because of that hedgerow is all sort of very much overgrown and very high and everything like that sort of thing. So it never looks very tidy to me, and I don't even know why we have to have that hedge there really, but there you are.
Don't go down that route, Chris.
I can give you the history of that. That was all done
like-
when the fence was put in, and that was part of it that the hedge was put in. The hedge is cut twice a year, so it won't be cut. It's due obviously for another cut now, but that went into the contract about 2 years ago. But you can't cut sort of after, because of birds nesting, you can't cut after the 1st of March until sort of end of August anyway. So all during the summer months, it can't be.
Yeah, so it's a bit defeated. You can't see the cricket when you walk along there.
But it was the cricket club who put that in, Chris.
I know. Well, it's a bit silly, really. And also, the ball gets when it's the boundary. I've seen them get right into that hedge to try and get the ball. It's anyway.
That was quite a controversial thing.
I had a lot of aggro on that one because I was mayor at the time. And I was called a lot of names by the cricket club about